Hi guys, in this video I wanted to talk a little bit less about ballet, I would say, and a little bit more about anatomy. It's probably the best way to describe this. I'm thinking about moves like ganchos or boleos, embellishments where, we're doing all these different wraps and these things. Um, so what I see people have problems with very often is that we don't, well, we can't keep our balance sometimes because our legs are not in the right position, or when we use one joint, for example, if I'm doing like an embellishment like that, or somebody leads me a bolero or something like that. Sometimes when you bend one joint, like when I bend my knee, I will see that somebody's other joint will be affected. So if we think about just the way our body is constructed, we have a joint here and we also have a joint here. So when we do something with our legs, both of these joints are usually affected. So for example, if I'm doing a bolero, my knee bends obviously, but something also happens to this joint. Now if this is just a linear bend, then my joint goes back. So I guess it straightens more or stretches my hip joint. So it's very important to be aware of that. So if I'm doing this, for example, I'm not going to raise my hip because that's going to make me lose my balance. So I'm going to stretch it to however much I can, or I keep hitting the wall behind me. If I don't have a wall behind me, I can stretch it maybe more. I can go up, but this is, for example, today for how much I'm stretched right now, this is as far as I can go. So I can do this, but what that's going to do, if I straighten here, you can see that it's putting my hip up. So now my balance is completely different. And when I move from that move, for example, if it's a forward step, I might be turning in too much because I'm trying to compensate for going the other way, or not consciously trying to compensate, but my body is. So it's important to be aware of both joints in this case, what they're doing. So what I just wanted to do is to practice these leg bends, for the lack of a better word. That's what I'm going to call them. So try to do this in front of a mirror so you can see what you're doing. So you can see it. Most important thing is that your hip doesn't pop up. So try this on both legs. As you bend your knee, your hip joint is going to stretch, because we always say brush the floor for as much as you can if you're doing a gancho, for example, or if you're doing a bolero. But I'm going to make sure that, again, this doesn't affect my balance. So for a bolero, which is circular, I am going to allow my hip to go back. But again, it's not going to do this. It's going to go back on the same plane as my standing hip. So I'm going to come back and be in balance. And again, for linear things, like ganchos, for example, if they're just from standing still, I'm going to stretch my joint and bend my knee. And I'm not going to bend my knee without stretching the joint, because that's going to give me this weird line. And I'm not going to rotate again, because first of all, I'm probably not hook in the right place for gancho, and I might hit my partner's leg with my heel if I'm wearing heels, so that's never a good idea. So we're going to just practice this brush the floor, brush as we always do, making sure we're turning out and everything, but now when I bend my knee, my joint is stretched and my hips are even. And then come back and do the same thing here. Brush, bend, and make sure your hips are even and close. So 1, 2, and bring it back. 1, 2, and bring it back. And now for bolero, same thing. You can try this with your arms to the side or next to a wall if you're not sure, but somehow you have to make sure that you can check your hips. You're not like this, you're not like this. Your hips are even, and then bring it back. And even hips, bring it back. 1, 2, and 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, if you feel that your hips are maybe tight, so you need to do this in order to get that leg around. Try to take a smaller ballet, so keep your knees closed the entire time, and instead of overcompensating, try some stretching exercises. For example, this is a good exercise. Just grab your joint, don't grab your foot. Grab your joint here, and you can, don't pull with your arm, but you can sort of push your hip a little bit back. You can do these exercises. You can do this for balance with both arms. Just again, make sure you're not pulling your foot. Grab your leg. And you can also do exercises like this, where you go in front and you bend your knee, so you can stretch out these joints. And then you will slowly, but you will be able to do this more. You'll get more mobility in this joint. But you, again, I can't stress this enough, never compensate for the lack of mobility here by doing this, because that will affect your balance.